Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reasonably Effective podcast. I am 10 Types, one of the hosts, as well as joined by Uncommon Fossil, and today we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. But how's your time been with Pokemon this past week?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Things have been good for me since I migrated over to Live, mainly because I don't have to switch between the two games, which was just kind of led to a lot of grinding without having all the cards. So I joined the cards in one place. I picked up the first EX card in Live, Mimikyu EX, tech that in Shadow Rider, which is okay. Doesn't necessarily make the deck better, but it's certainly fun to try out something like that. And how's your week been?
I don't know. It's been okay, but wait, have you ever attacked the Mimikyu in the deck?
Let me think. I'm not
It's not
sure.
good.
I've had them hit into my Mimikyu, which has actually been better than they're hitting into a Shadow Rider. So it
Well, because
served
it's not Shadow Rider, right?
right because Shadow Rider gives it three prizes, so I kind of
Well, yeah, but the V gives up two prizes,
correct. But I
and it
had
has more HP.
it does. Up against like some of the Lugia matchups or something where they get a lot of energy into play. Um, the Mimikyu EX could be a good attacker in that, right? So
Yeah.
there's times I've wanted to use it. Getting it set up is not always easy, but there's also times you attack with the Shadow Rider V also it's situationally. So I don't think it's a bad notion. Now I've put an Eternatus V, Radiant Eternatus with some nets, so it might even make it a little better since I could scoop it up as an option.
Yeah. But we'll talk about more about that later, I
Yep.
guess. I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, I haven't picked up Mimikyu EX. I just picked up like literally right before this I picked up the Aurora Energy build for Lugia, that like whole deck, because I said if I'm playing live for like another month or so before rotation, I wanna have like what's one of the better decks, if not the best deck. And it's the deck that's just annoying to play against that I keep losing to. And it's the only deck I haven't really played in this current format. Between PTCG and live, I've been able to get most of the other decks, but picking this one up seems pretty cool. Um, but
Hmm.
I guess so. Our first topic is going to be talking about live. Actually,
Yep.
we've decided to drop the game show because it's bad. Now some of you may be thinking the whole podcast is bad. But let's talk about live. Speaking of
Yep.
bad,
It's not
it-
that bad. I know you're a hater, and actually, I will admit, it seems like the game crashes for you very often, and it almost never happens to me. So I think the Pokemon people know you don't like live, and they're punishing you. But anyway, continue.
yeah, I was gonna say it's been like it crashes some for me pretty regularly, probably like once a week.
Okay.
It depends how much I'm playing it, but it certainly crashes quite a bit. Like after the update, it crashed. And they haven't like the new update. They finally allowed you to turn off. Well, I guess finally is a bit of a stretch, but they allowed you to turn off the animations, which they probably should have done from the start. And when I say the animations they added back in. They
Yeah.
extended the animations, and now they have the option to revert it back to what it used to be, which is kind of strange. Doesn't
Hmm.
really show much progress, unfortunately, but
Well,
it's something. And then yeah,
well, I mean,
there haven't been great changes though.
they got rid of the two banned cards, right? So as far as I know,
Oh, they unbanned.
they
Yeah.
unbanned them. So yeah, right. You can play them now, and I guess they work okay. I'm not sure that I've tried them. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're showing a very concerning amount of focus to me on the visuals, right? When the game itself needs fixing, right? I mean, the one thing I've noticed since the last change, other people have too. I have the volume on my computer typically, but often I'm not listening to anything, and I have the sound turned down in the game. But when a metal Pokemon switches from bench to active, it still makes sound even though it's all turned off in the game. So usually the computer is silent. All of a sudden, there's this huge sound, like when Mew switches into Genesect in the middle of the turn. It's very disconcerting. So
Yeah, you said that before we started, but wait, well, I just realized why are they switching their Mew into their Genesect? That doesn't really make any sense.
I don't know honestly, but that's the only time I notice. That's pretty much the only time it happens. Um, the people there aren't many other metal Pokemon getting played now. We'll talk about one later on, but that one I you don't run into much.
Yeah, I've been
I
seeing a lot of Zacian because it's like
yeah.
a starter deck and it's all right.
Yeah, it can be attacked in different decks too. So depending what you want it to do for draw and stuff. But I'm not sure. I guess like if they have two switch cards and they're just kind of burning cards, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I think also if I boss them up, which certainly I would do that against Mew,
Yeah,
then I think it makes the effect too. Then probably.
yeah, that's probably true. And like, I don't think the the changes they're making aren't horrible, but
Hmm.
the bigger issue is the changes they're not making, as in like the game kind of works, but not exactly. And then you like there aren't really many options. Like you can't really play different game modes at all.
Hmm.
And if you want to play against your friends, which is certainly something that's very important for any game,
Yep.
um, you can't play in any format other than standard, which is just weird. Like you should be able to play
Yep.
unlimited probably because or at least expanded
Expanded,
because
right?
you want to be able to like test different things out. Usually I think like you should have the option to do unlimited because if it doesn't work, I mean you're just playing against your friends, right? It's not like you're losing anything. So I feel like having the option at least to play unlimited should be there. I mean you shouldn't if they have cards that they haven't implemented at all, you shouldn't really
Hmm.
be able to play them because who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
But you should be able to at least try out those cards, which you can't try out, which is annoying. And then expanded ladder, have you played that at all?
No, I haven't. Well, in expanded, you're right. You can only do, I think, that in unranked. I might have
Yeah.
done it once or twice just to check it out, but no, I have not. I mean, the idea of expanded with this truncated format, in some sense, is kind of interesting, right? Sun and Moon on. It would be interesting to try out, but the fact you can't do it against friends, you can't do it unranked, but I just think they're having so much trouble just getting standard to work. They just don't want it. It's probably better if they don't work on something like expanded and unlimited at this point.
I guess so. I do think let's just say that I haven't actually played unranked except for maybe like a few games of expanded
Yep.
because I mean like the ranked isn't even like that good. I mean I consider myself a pretty solid player, but like a lot of my opponents just aren't that solid.
Yeah.
Sometimes I certainly do. I've been moving up a little, so I see that my opponents are able to like, are I'd say like, all right players now, but I don't feel like. I mean, I don't know. I haven't played on ranked, but I can't imagine it's better than ranked. I mean, there's a bit of toxicity on ranked though. People do like try to stall you out. They concede
Hmm.
before you get your challenges. All that annoying stuff. But I can't imagine it'll be better in unranked.
No, I mean, ranked isn't that difficult. I mean, I guess if you get really high up in the ranked, maybe it becomes that way. I mean, having played like some Magic, when the Magic ranked, if you're not that good or your decks aren't that good, you get to a point in ranked and you're just going to get run over all the time. So then you kind of need to play unranked. But in live, the ranked, the opponents, there's a lot of random decks and random players, even in rank. So there's no reason not to do ranked in live.
Yeah, I mean we haven't tried unranked, but
No, I mean I played it unranked like once or twice when I first got the game when I first downloaded because I figured I would ranked would be too difficult. But after a couple games, I tried ranked and never looked back. So
yeah, and I think most players play ranked. It's kind
yeah,
of like the default way that the game wants you to play, I think.
yep.
And it doesn't seem like people are too concerned about ranking up or down. I mean, the ranks don't really mean anything at all, which is kind of weird. I guess I don't hate it, but because I think of having more incentive to win is generally bad because then people are just gonna push themselves like to win and then just be super toxic all the time, which isn't good. So I think it's fair that the ranks don't mean much, but they're just these like weird currencies, like there are multiple different rank things,
Hmm.
and it's just kind of a mess.
Yeah, you have your rank and then you have your profile, which is some other number that I don't really know what that means at all.
Yeah.
But once obviously Scarlet and Violet's coming, a lot of people are going to switch into live, even if PTCGO sticks around, because they want to play with the new cards. So ranked and people's ranking might become more important. So we'll see if that impacts things, but that's down the road.
Yeah, and I can't. I don't know if there are a lot of new players, which I think would make sense
Hmm.
during that Scarlet and Violet period. I don't think it's gonna go. I think the servers are just gonna like crash and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now the game live is okay for a beta, but it's still very much a beta, which isn't good. That only the new cards are going to be in the beta program. That's a bad decision there, I think. But they haven't ever been good at a new set, so that's going to be a challenge. Obviously,
This
this
is
is
the hardest set, right?
right. It's adding a new mechanic. It's rotation also coming, and I'm not sure the timing exactly, but with rotation, and it's going to get a lot of new players. So probably the players are going to overwhelm the server, and there's probably going to be a lot of glitches, and it could be, it wouldn't be surprised if the game's almost unplayable for a week or two, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And It's all good because it'll all make good content.
Well, that's right. You can just complain about how bad it is also. So at this point, I've migrated. So if the game's unplayable for 2 weeks, I'm playing Magic or doing nothing, I guess. Whereas you can go back to PTCGO with you and like 10 other people probably at that point. But
Yeah, better than nothing, certainly.
yeah, I mean, it's nice having the option. It is nice getting all the cards together. Like what till today you didn't get Lugia because it's expensive to get in PTCGO. You get like most of the Lugia cards in live, but you still need for the Aurora build a bunch of cards to craft, and you weren't doing it enough probably to want to put the outlay, but now you've invested in it.
Yeah.
So all right, so live is okay now. Obviously, the future is concerning, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. And in terms of obviously, I make content, you make some content as well.
Yep.
Um, you can't really good gameplay style content has to be on an online client. Some people have made tabletop gameplay, but it's just much worse to watch. You don't really know what's going on very well. You can kind of figure it out, but it's certainly difficult, and it's also much more difficult to produce. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you want to make good content and easier to make content, you need a good online client. And certainly Pokemon content, compared to YouTube content as a whole, is certainly much lower than like most things. So I'd
Yep.
say I think live needs to be good, and live can be good, but right now it hasn't. Like I remember when people are talking about live, there are a few different ideas. One was that it was going to incorporate older formats, which it has literally done the opposite of.
Yep.
But then also one of the ideas was that the live aspect meant that it was going to incorporate live streaming or some other form of content creation, which it has not done. That was a
No.
bit of a stretch, but some people are expecting that it has not done that.
No, I mean initially the thought was I think what new things can they add to PTCGO and Live, and now it's just a matter of what things can they add to get it close to the level of PTCGO. There's a lot of features that I think they should add to be a game of today, but that's a long ways off, unfortunately. And on the thing, I mean, I think we both agree that watching the digital games much better than watching IRL play through a camera. But people like Tricky Jim, Omnipoke are now setting up cameras, so there are those that are going that route that just feel live just isn't good enough. So it's not a good place that Pokemon's put people in.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to step out of the way and I can take the spotlight, I'm all good with that.
That's
But
right.
certainly it's their loss, I'd say. Well, no, it's everyone's loss if a lot of the top content creators are just choosing to like if they're really put in a spot where they can't create good content because of the situation.
Right. I mean, obviously, you can't do a proper deck overview. The deck builder still needs a lot of work and stuff. So, anyway. Um,
Yeah, I was honestly shocked when I imported my Lugia deck that it actually worked because I remember I went to import some other deck and it just didn't work at all. I don't know what happened, but it didn't import. But the Lugia deck didn't import all the cards right. Certainly that happens with PTCGO as well, but it's easier
mhm.
to fix in PTCGO, so kind of annoying. I wish they'd fix that. It's not the end of the world, but I just hope they clean it up a bunch.
Yeah. I mean, you import a deck, and for some cards like Marnie, it doesn't look like I own Marnie because it
Y-
defaults to its one art that I don't own. So it's like, so I got to go through the hassle of fixing it every time.
Yeah,
But
but I think it's time we move on to our next segment, right?
yes, I think we've talked more than enough about live. And
Uh, and
so,
so we're going to talk about Dialga Vstar, which is well, you've been playing Dialga a little, right, recently?
yeah, I put together the Turbo Dialga, kind of the old build with Mew, and it worked pretty well. I think I recently played that deck with the old. It works pretty well. Obviously, Dialga Vstar attack is what makes it really exciting. Um, I'll call it up here. Sorry, I wasn't ready for
Yeah, I'll
that.
get it. I got it.
So
Star
no,
Chronos.
yeah.
Oh,
So Star Chronos does 220. Origin form Dialga V Star 280. Obviously, it's an evolution. Star Chronos 220 for 5 energy, and you take another turn after it, which is tremendous. But obviously, 5 energy is a lot. And the first attack, Metal Blast, 40 plus 40 more damage per each metal energy attached to this Pokemon. So especially if you can start Kronos, you have 5 energy, you do a meaningful amount of damage with Metal Blast after. and so the idea is 2 turns and you kind of wrapped up the game.
Yeah, and usually you won't necessarily have like one, but you'll be a spot where you'll need to take, say, one more KO, and your
Yeah,
opponent won't be able to KO your Dialga back because 280 HP is tanky. It's pretty tanky. It's nothing like insane.
right. It's not
I think
bad.
that's part of why it's faded away. Decks like Lugia and also newer builds of Lost Box, or a lot of builds of Lost Box can definitely one-shot this, which is obviously bad. And you
Yeah,
probably just lose. Also, it's obviously very hard to set up. It plays the Mew engine, the quote-unquote turbo build of Dialga, which is very strange. It's not a fast deck. I mean, it's not a super slow deck, but like
right.
it going fast is attacking turn 2, which pretty much every other deck in the game expects to do every game. So,
hmm
yeah, I don't know why some people call it Turbo Dialga. I just, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that concept. It's kind of a strange deck because I'll talk about this for a minute. It's a 2/2 Dialga is what people usually play, and that's what I've done. And it takes a lot of energy on the one Dialga, 5 at least. And honestly, you want to get even 6 or 7 when you use the first attack. Like after you've done the Vstar attack, you want to then knock out like a Vstar, which means you need what, like 6 or 7 energy on it. So it's and then the problem is after you've done that, if that Dialga is knocked out, you only have 2 main attackers. But honestly, you can't get another Dialga up with enough energy to do meaningful damage. So it's kind of, you're almost riding, when the deck works, one Dialga through the course of the game. Or it plays Zacian, and sometimes I've actually started to use the Zacian more as the first attack. Get 1 or 2 prizes with the Zacian, and then finish the game off with the Dialga. Sometimes, depending how it goes.
Yeah, and then also this I'm looking at here plays one of the Dialgas from Celebrations. Its ability,
Hmm
its first attack allows you to recover cards, and its second attack does damage. It's not great, but it's okay. And I kind of like that in the deck. I don't play this deck a ton. It's not exactly my style deck. It's not that fast and it's not that slow. I usually like very fast or very slow decks, and it doesn't quite do either of those. Um, but I think it's an all right deck. It's not a
Yeah.
great deck though. It's very strange by not having many attackers. And it has it plays differently than most other decks, but it's somewhat straightforward as well.
It is. I've with doing the deck. I kind of had to learn early on. My problem early on is I would run out of attack. I couldn't. I'd take 5 prizes, then I get to the point where I can't get enough energy or Pokemon to attack with, because you only have 3 Pokemon that can potentially attack in the deck. 2 Dialgas and 1 Zacian with it, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm out of cards here. What do I do?
Yeah, and you often don't choose to attack with Zacian either, because it's kind of awkward to set up.
Right. But like the hard part is sometimes getting 6 prizes is tough with the deck because, like I said, to get enough energy to use Metal Blast effectively on 2 Dialgas isn't easy because, so you're kind of, it's a tricky deck. I think looking at Limitless, it's winning a little over 40% win rate, both this build and the Lost Zone build, we'll talk about too. At this, and once rotation hits, certainly the Mew deck I think goes away for sure because that relies on Metal Saucer, and Metal Saucer is obviously very very powerful to get it set up. So without that, I can't see it as really being a viable option.
Yeah, I think Dialga probably won't really be. I mean, a particularly good post rotation unless we see something else, right? We could. It
Yeah,
still has quite a while left in format. Like is it 2 years? Yeah, I think it has 2 years left in format. So,
yeah,
nothing.
it's an F mark. So
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's not like the most interesting card in the game, but it could become kind of interesting. And so I think it's fair. I think it's a weird card though. It just has such a strange dynamic. Have going all in on this attack that just
hmm
does weird stuff. But you mentioned the Lost Zone build, and I
yeah.
like this much more. This is the main way to play it now. Is this the main way to play it now?
I mean, I was looking at IRL play, and I think 2 people have played the Lost Zone, and like 5 people have played the Turbo build. So
Yeah, but
and the win rates
that's
are
that's
both
not that
kind
many.
of, no, it's not a lot, and the win rates are like in the low 40% for both builds. So it's
Yeah,
it's your choice which way you want to
yeah,
go with it.
but this build I like much more. Instead of Mew and as Comfy, which does dig a bit less into the deck, but then you also, and then of course you play Close Experiment instead of other supporters.
Right.
But then you can use Mirage Gate in addition to Metal Saucer, making it much easier to set up attackers. You also have the addition of the Cramorant and also Radiant Greninja. to allow
Hmm.
you to have different attackers and like a more consistent deck in the early game. And I think this build's much stronger because you just have options. And if your Dialga gets KO'd, you don't just lose the game. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely much more of a fan of this build.
I mean, obviously, different attacking options is good. You can, especially since you often with the turbo build, you're not attacking necessarily turn two. We're not attacking meaningfully turn two. So hitting with a Cramorant and then when that gets knocked out, gives up one prize is is better than probably attacking with Dialga on turn two. So having that as an option is good. On the downside, though, you have to play Water Energy also, or because you need a second energy type, and with Water you can attack with Radiant Greninja. So, but you only want Metal really on Dialga. So you're kind of you're weakening Dialga's first attack right by throwing on Water Energy. So that's a negative to me.
You don't have to throw on Water Energy to Dialga though, and you can split it up between different targets too.
Yeah. The other thing, this is the reason I don't like the build. They probably, I've had a hard time getting it set up, but as I'm playing Lost Zone with this deck, I'm thinking like after the first and the middle of the second turn, I wish I had a better attacker than Dialga. Like, why am I doing Lost Zone with Dialga? I could do Lost Zone with a bunch of other cards instead, right?
Well, yeah, but like
So
Dialga's not that good.
yeah,
Like even the Mew build of Dialga isn't that good.
but at least when I'm playing the Mew build, there's not some other card, attacker I want with the Mew build, right? The Mew build isn't good for that many things right now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because
So you're
Lost
making your
Zone's
deck
what
worse to make yourself feel better. That's what you're doing.
exactly. Well, see, because Lost Zone, it's like one of the top two decks in the game right now, right? Except this is not one.
Possibly.
Except this is clearly not one of. This is not the build that fits that, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the Lost
So
Zone build definitely feels better than the Mew build. Like I think it's almost directly better. It's like because Mel Saucer is like a very significant part of the deck, right?
yes.
It's like one of the it's Dialga Metal Saucer.
Hmm.
This is essentially gives you twice as many metal saucers, except the new metal saucers are easier to use. So
Yeah, I mean, having Mirage
I don't
Gate's
know.
a nice
I think it's
option. Obviously, you're switching around a lot more because with your comfies. So, but that's what Lost Zone does. So, I mean, have you played Lost Zone Dialga or not really? You just like the
yeah.
deck list more.
I played the Lost One Dialga some.
All
Let's
right.
see, what's my win rate on PCGO? It's 50%. I mean, it's hard to tell
Okay.
win rate on PCGO, and then my regular one. It's actually about. I haven't played either of them very much, but
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely think this deck's it makes more sense the Lost Zone build. I think the other build of Dialga doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm a fan of Lost Zone definitely as well. So,
I mean, yeah. I mean, Lost Zone is very good, obviously. But at least with PTGO, you can check your win rate here in live. I don't think you can find that your win rate with the decks because that's too much for them still at this point. Um,
yeah.
Obviously it's reasonably effective. The podcast and Dialga. I mean, yeah, and Dialga is
What
kind. What's that?
what are you like saying?
I don't know. Well, Dialga is a reasonably effective card, right? It's not
Yeah.
overly effective, so I think it fits in there. And honestly, I think if Dialga was too much better, though, it could be overpowered, right? Because that Star Chronos attacking twice is huge, right? So if it was a little bit easier to set up, it probably would be too good, and it wouldn't be good if Dialga just runs the game, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of an annoying card. It's kind of weird. Like pretty much, I don't know. Both players kind of play separate games, which isn't really great. Um,
Yeah,
you just kind of do stuff. It's not horrible, but I
yeah,
don't know. I know
mhm.
it's weird.
Yeah. It's not a lot of interaction with your opponent. It is kind of a solitaire deck in that regard. So
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, which doesn't make for great gameplay, but there's certainly a place for solitaire decks in the game as an option. It's good to give that
Yeah.
as a choice. So
Like control, where your opponent doesn't do anything.
exactly. So anything's better than control, including Dialga.
Yeah, but then I have one more build here. You
Oh,
don't
okay.
have any more builds, do you?
No.
Actually, wait, I have two more builds,
Well, I'll
but
just say,
the one build's Metacham.
okay. Well, just on the one Mew build is to put in the the cards that work with Bird Keeper because you are switching a lot, which you can have Rowlet, which does 60, which especially can be good if early on, like turn two, you're attacking the first attack on the Vstar, you might not knock something out, so you put 60 on one of the bench, so you might be able to finish something off if they've retreated. And then you could even potentially play Starly, where you search for 2 cards. So kind of just to help yourself set up early on has some value. So that's an option in the deck too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. And I'm not a big fan of Avery. I don't think it's a very good card. I think Birdkeeper is probably better. But so I have two other builds. I
Yeah.
said the one's a Metacham build. I haven't even gotten the pieces. I don't think it's good. But the idea is you can't. Oh, actually, I was gonna say you can't do multiple Dialga V-Star powers in a row, obviously because it's a V-Star power. You
Right.
can't do Metacham V 2 turns in a row, but you can
Hmm.
do, I believe, Metacham V and then go in with Dialga, and then Medcham V again. So you can actually take 4 turns in a row, which is kind of interesting. But
So
I
you,
don't.
so you attack with Metacham, which you obviously have to have him set up for the knockout. Then you'd
Yeah,
use the V Star power attack. Then you'd use Metacham V. Then you use like Dialga's first attack, probably.
yeah, something like that. Which is a funny idea. I don't. I've never seen anyone do it. Um, it's like pretty much impossible to set up, but it's funny. You're gonna like win if you do that. Probably. There's still a chance you'd lose anyway. But yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah, I mean it's a content creator's video where your friends are letting you set yourself up. Probably. I mean, I can't imagine how many games you'd have to actually play to just make it happen on the ladder.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But then the other build that I actually think is all right. Do I have a win rate? It's probably. Oh, it is 1-for-1. Wow.
hundred
Um,
percent.
yeah. Oh yeah, I remember this deck. This. Let's play your favorite Pokemon, Blissey.
With Blissey, huh? Blissey V,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah, because you were mentioning Thornton, right? Could be
Oh
okay
yeah,
this turn.
right. Yeah, because right. Which and I'll say my idea there, and you told me it was bad, and I tried it, and it was bad. But Zacian, it's easy to get energy on Zacian, especially on your first turn. You attach, and then you hopefully can often accelerate one with the Intrepid Sword ability, and then Thornton lets you switch from the discard in, so it's a way to get a Dialga up to the V Star on the second turn with more energy. So
Yeah,
now you
but you're
think,
not super likely to hit it with Zacian, so I feel like Thornton doesn't have a ton of value there.
so you want to apply that to Blissey, huh?
Yeah, I was thinking what's better than Zacian? It's Blissey. So you play Blissey V. You go ahead and you use your Blissful Blast attack, which accelerates a bunch of energy to Blissey. It does
Yeah.
damage and has a bunch of HP. I guess the HP doesn't matter. The fact that it does more than Dialga, but because Dialga V has an attack that accelerates to itself, but it doesn't do any damage and it doesn't accelerate as much as Blissey.
Right.
Um, Also Blissey V in its own right is a solid attacker, but
Yeah.
you can Thornton the Blissey V into the origin form Dialga V, evolve it into the V-Star, and then all of a sudden you can literally Blissey V attach, accelerate 3, next turn Thornton attach, and you got your V-Star power set up. So it's not super easy,
Yeah.
but in the late game, in this list I'm running, plays 1 Luminion and 3 Thornton, so it's not that hard to get, especially during the mid to late game, and it's much easier to set up because it's not as complicated of a combo.
Hmm.
In the meantime, you're not really doing much of anything, but that's an interesting idea. And then I also play the Mimikyu V Thornton package, which is very strong. Some people don't think like Mimikyu V Thornton with Arceus was an interesting deck. Actually, one of my most viewed videos. Pretty much completely outclassed by Lugia now. But Mimikyu V being invincible the turn you play it, you can Thornton into the Blissey. So you actually have an invincible Blissey with 4
Hmm.
energy on it. The next turn you attach to Blissey, Thornton into Dialga V Star. So that's kind of the idea there.
So because Mimikyu V is immune to damage the turn you play it, right?
Yeah,
So you play Mimikyu, you Thornton
into Blissey.
into Blissey the turn you play down the Mimikyu, right?
Yeah, and
That's
then
what-
you accelerate energy to Blissey.
right, and then you have to get it into the active, right? Because Mimikyu
Yeah,
obviously plays it to the bench, so you need to switch into the active, attack with the Blissey, which had to be in the discard, Thornton in hand. You need to have 3 energies in the discard to make it all pay off. I'm just trying to think through the
yeah.
pieces
No,
here.
and then next turn you Thornton again,
You
the Blissey into the Dialga,
right,
and then you evolve and attach.
which means you need to have another Thornton in your hand the next turn, and be your Dialga in the discard. Yeah, okay. It's a lot. So it's a lot of things to make happen.
Yeah, but if you get that set up, you're gonna win probably because you got an
Yes.
invincible Pokemon in the active, which actually stays invincible even if they gust. If they like rope boss, it's still invincible because it's an effect of an ability, not an attack. Um, and then
Wait,
so,
so
so you
it's
can
immune the next turn? Is that what it does?
let's see, I have it here.
Until the end of your
Currently,
opponent's next turn.
yeah,
So therefore, okay. So because when I get in, wait. So I'm going from Blissey directly to Dialga. Is that correct?
the second turn, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not immune that turn, but I have back-to-back turns with Dialga, so I should
Well,
be
yeah, it's immune the turn that you used it. It's immune. The Dialga's never immune, but
right. The
but
Blissey
when you
is
get the Dialga up, it'll be the Vstar, and you can use the Vstar power.
right, right, and they can't damage my Blissey.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something anyway. That is more high roll than just about any of the other builds we've talked about. But
No, no, fine, fine. You really want me to bring out the last build? I'll get it. I'll get it.
you got
It's
something more high roll,
well,
huh?
it's the meta champ, right? I haven't played
No,
it.
that's true. Well, I'm not. I discount that. That's
Yeah,
just a fun idea, which is what it is a fun idea, but I don't see that as workable at all. I
yeah.
gotta
You can
say.
power it up with Blastoise from Pokemon Go. You have Medicham, and it plays 26 Pokemon, and it only runs a 2/2 Dialga and one Medicham and 8 energy.
So it works smoothly. That sounds like
Yeah,
from that
I don't
description.
have all the cards.
Okay.
But yeah, we were speaking of Mimikyu. I think it's time we moved on,
To the
right?
very first of the EXs, which I have been playing this week. So
So yeah, you got Mimikyu EX dropped in. What was it? Was it a tin
live.
box?
I think it was a box, which is an IRL product, but then in live, the store in live, that you can buy the products in live, which actually is a nice thing with live. We didn't mention that before. The fact in PTCGO you couldn't buy the products, like things like the Ice Rider League Battle deck you couldn't buy. You can buy those things in live, which is a plus. So therefore, there's a Mimikyu EX box, which has the Mimikyu EX. So the first EX, which dropped this week, another Psychic Pokemon with it that it's not particularly good, and then I think 4 Crown Zenith packs. So within the economy, it gives you access to these cards a little easier, I think. So
Yeah, I think that's cool. Although there are really you can just get it other ways. You can just craft it.
you
So
can,
pretty much it's spreading out. Like PTCG only has one currency. No, that's not true. It has packs, which are a currency. But I
right.
think the live economy can get a bit complicated. But yeah, Mimikyu EX. Tell us what that does because I don't have live up and I don't know what it does.
All right,
I
so
kind of
let
do.
me call up. Right, so Mimikyu EX, the first EX available. It's got 190 HP. It's a basic, so easy to get into play. Gives up 2 prizes, as all the EXs do. This is lowercase EX. And 2 attacks. Avoid Return for 1 psychic, does 30 damage, and you can switch it with one of your bench Pokemon. You don't have to, though. And then the main attack is Energy Burst for 3 energy, 1 psychic, and then 2 colorless. It does 30 damage per energy attached to both active Pokemon. So it's not great, but up against an opponent with a lot of energy, which some of the like Lugia builds will do that, you can do some big damage.
Yeah. So I mean that's not that good though, right?
It's not that good. I mean, I wanted to play with it, so I put it in the Shadow Rider because obviously Shadow Rider lets you accelerate to it to set it up on the turn you want. You can scoop up net it, right? That's one, unlike the V's, which you can't. The EX can, at least. So I'm not sure how long when rotation happens. I mean, nets are going to rotate, but right now you can scoop up the EXs. So, it's this is certainly an underwhelming EX, but there's certainly better ones coming soon, I think.
Yeah, and I want to actually correct one thing you said. You said
Yeah.
this was the first EX. So EXs are kind of weird. In Pokemon TCG, there were actually EXs a long time ago. I don't know when this was. This was before. I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
with the quote unquote EX era, which is kind of silly now because they're all like there are a bunch of different cards called EXs,
Yeah.
but they're like well they're not necessarily evolutions, but they if it would normally be a stage 2, it's still a stage 2. If it would normally be a basic, it's still a basic.
Hmm.
And so they can evolve. They give up 2 prizes, pretty straightforward. And that's the new ones, and then the old ones that are also the new ones.
Mhm.
Then there are the middle ones, which are sometimes called the new EXs, but now they're going to start being called the old EXs, with that are capital EXs,
Right.
that are all basic. So even if the Pokemon would be a stage 2, like say Charizard, it would be a basic Charizard EX, which gives up 2 prizes. And then there are some spin-offs of at least the capital new or old EXs,
All right.
called Mega EXs and stuff.
So let me ask you a question just to try to simplify things a little bit. In terms of playing with PTCGO, the old lowercase ex's, they were not part of that game. Is that correct?
No, no, they're much older
Not
than
not
that.
even they're pre-legacy. And the capital ex's, are they in expanded
Yeah, they're in expanded and
and
legacy.
legacy?
They first came out in black
Okay.
and white, and they actually extended they were in both black and white and um X and Y, which is unique. Generally, it's only for one like generation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Pokemon went back, reused the same name for a third time. Obviously, they just seem to not care in that regard about keeping things straight. I mean, I guess the old lowercase are old enough, but if you're playing expanded and you have EXs, you're talking about potentially two different types of cards, which doesn't make sense. But
Yeah, and I saw, I don't know what YouTube channel this was, but they're talking about EXs, and their thumbnail, it has like a big, like a tall lowercase e or something in
okay.
their title. So I don't really know what's going on with them anymore. But I believe they are the same as the old EXs, like the old
The
EXs,
way they
lowercase.
work is the same. They evolve from like if it's a stage 1 or stage 2, it evolves from the single prize Pokemon with those names from it.
Yeah, yeah, which is also how GXs work. But then V's worked kind of like the capital EXs,
Right. Yeah. So
the middle EXs.
yeah, whatever. I mean, in standard we'll have V's, V stars, and EXs. And so that's what we're gonna be dealing with,
I mean, yeah,
right?
there are something. Well, what do you say? V stars, and
Yeah.
EXs?
So we'll have V's and
I mean,
EXs
there's more than that.
overlapping.
Yeah, but then there's a few things. There's V's, which also have V stars, V unions, and V maxes.
Yeah.
There are still going to be Radiant Pokemon, which are a unique mechanic.
Right.
EXs, and then also um Terrestrial EXs, which are a variant, very
Right.
underwhelming, right?
Well,
Which
what does the Trastal or Trastalization? It's a like a Poke Power, but it's not actually a Poke Power, right? It's not
what
an
do you mean
ability.
Poke Power?
Well,
Like
what
an
are they?
ability? It's
It's
not
an
an ability.
ability, but it's not an ability,
It's like
right?
it's a thing. It's kind of like an ancient trait if you're familiar with
Oh
those,
yeah.
like Omega Barrier and something else. I don't know. So it won't be turned off by ability lock, but pretty much it says so far we've seen, I believe, two. I believe Dedenne and Gyarados. Wait, is Arcanine? Oh yeah, so Dedenne isn't coming out yet, but I believe it's
The Arcanine
Arcanine,
EX. Yeah, I have the page here with it.
and
So
then
it's
it's
Terastal, and it says this Pokemon doesn't take any damage from attacks while on the bench. And since it's
yeah,
not
and
in
is Gyarados also? Gyarados is also Terrestrial, right?
I would have to find that. Um,
I don't know if that's coming out in the next.
I
I
don't
think it is.
remember.
It's really bad.
Or it might not have made this list too. This is the more prominent ones, so I don't see it. But it's not an ability, so things that shut off abilities don't affect it. So like wheezing doesn't turn it off. Now
Which will be rotating.
that's true. Now path to the
And can't do bench damage. And can't do bench damage.
yeah.
So it doesn't really matter
It
at
doesn't.
all. But
It doesn't seem very impactful. Correct. Now, but there's this assumption that other terrestrial quote abilities, I guess, are going to be different, right? And maybe more useful, but time will tell with that.
yeah, and the big thing about terrestrial Pokemon is in the video games, they're meant to change your type or boost effects, but primarily they're thought of as a way to change your Pokemon's type. There is the
Yeah.
mechanic Delta species. I don't know if that was at the same time as EXs. That was certainly like quite a while before I started playing. But it could be something like that. It could be. I mean, we've seen various ways of changing types, but the Terrestrial mechanic so far has not shown any signs of that. So hopefully we see some form of type change or different effects or just something unique. Stopping bench damage. This is nothing unique at all.
Yeah.
And so I guess they're easing us into it, or maybe they're just really lazy. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah, it doesn't do much. So hopefully it gives them something to work with, I guess. Now, if an EX has an ability, does Path to the Peak shut it off? I'm trying to remember how that's
Yes,
phrased.
yes. Path to the Peak is something that stops rule box
Okay,
Pokemon. So yeah,
and obviously
EXs are rule box.
they are. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, and then some of the EXs do have abilities also, certainly.
Yeah, like the Miraidon and Koraidon. The what are they? Are they dragons? I don't know. Transformer bikes, something like that. But so I think so. What are your thoughts on like the mechanic as a whole, though?
I mean, I think it's a good idea that this idea that compared to the V's that we've had, the Vstar or the Vmax evolves only from a V, so multi-prizer from multi-prizer. Going back to the idea of a multi-prizer evolving from a single prizer, I think is more interesting. So therefore, you don't have that liability when it's sitting there. It's only given one prize. At the same time, the single prizer HP isn't as much, so it's easier if you're worried about it in your opponent to get it knocked out too. So I think it could make for interesting gameplay.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of like the evolution Pokemon not being multi-prizers because
Mm-hmm.
generally it's always good to target their setup. Um, so if they're worth just as many prizes as their main attacker, there's no reason not to go for them. Um, but then if they're worth less prize, you need to decide, do you want to target them to weaken their board state, or do
Mm-hmm.
you want to go ahead and prizes more, or just maintain a better prize position? And I think that's really interesting compared to just always having a more obvious solution. I think it opens up more routes, and also like you can evolve, or you can also there's some incentive not to evolve at some points as well. Right
Yep.
now you're always going to evolve a V into a V star unless some absurd scenario that I can't think of. Maybe with Arceus, its first attack's cheaper, but really you always want to evolve.
Right.
But then sometimes you won't evolve a VMAX. I play a lot of Flying Pikachu because
Mm-hmm.
that's the only deck on live pretty much that's easily accessible. As I said, I just crafted Lugia, but before I was playing Flying Pikachu Arceus, and you wouldn't always evolve your Flying Pikachu
Mm-hmm.
because you want to not have that Pokemon available to give up three prizes. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting dynamic that comes into effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think it will open up the potential at least for rare candy decks, which is always fun. It's always fun to try and pull those off. They usually don't succeed well, but at least now there's a bigger payoff because if it goes into an EX, then you can rare candy from the basic into the stage two.
Yeah, I mean, rare candy decks have been okay, notably with GXs that are like very big,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just if you have this high payoff. Because right now in current standard, you don't you evolve into a stage two, and you have
Yeah.
less payoff than if you had gone to a V Max or V Star, which is a stage one. So it's just like I spent more work and got less payoff. Sure, I don't give up as many prizes, but it's so much more difficult to work with. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I think the EXs like what are the HPs are up as big as like I don't remember if it's yeah I
Some of
think
them are pretty big.
340. Generally like I think basic EXs are around the same HP line as Vs, which makes a lot of sense because they're essentially the same. Stage ones are equivalent to V stars, which is and I see the stage one. I mean, they're kind of
Yeah.
similar, so that kind of makes sense. And then the
Mm-hmm.
stage twos are big as V maxes, which are these three prize Pokemon or V unions, which is pretty insane. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to become viable. I don't think they'll be overpowered though. I don't know. I wouldn't hate to see them strong though.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact that it's only giving up two prizes with a big HP, hopefully, is an equal payoff to the work it takes to get to stage two. I don't want to see the game where only stage two EXs are the decks that you have to play. So hopefully, we don't end up there. I don't think we will because stage twos are like they're difficult. Um, but it's nice having it as a viable option, which in like you said in the past year, Sword and Shield that whole block. The stage twos weren't good enough, right? You didn't get a knockout on a big Pokemon after doing the rare candies and all the pieces, so therefore you kind of wasted your time. You didn't get the
Yeah.
the payoff.
Only seen a few. Realistically, through the whole Sword and Shield block, there have been a few viable stage twos. We've seen Inteleon engine, which is amazing, but it's an engine with its stage one being amazing. And then
Right,
we've seen Archeops, right, which is that's not really a stage two.
right, right. Neither of those are you jumping up to the stage two. I mean, occasionally there were times that you might rare candy to the Inteleon to draw two, or to say Raihan for your attack, a surprise. But that was the exception. Generally, you wanted to go Drizzile to Inteleon, and obviously Archeops, you're getting into play from Lugia.
Yeah. But then there's also stuff like Decidueye and
Hmm.
Obstagoon are also stage twos that were viable, but they were
Yeah,
like invincible essentially once you set them up, so it doesn't really matter.
right. Right. Certainly, they had Decidueye. Certainly had his day for sure. Um, and it kind of, because it was invincible, made enough of a payoff that it could work.
Yeah, it's like you get into the stage two, you win. It's not
Right.
like most other stage twos are you involve into the stage two, you lose. So this doesn't really
Right. I
feel
mean,
that good.
I mean, the stage two that people probably saw the most play was the Charizard for the theme deck because that was very accessible and it wasn't the worst deck ever. But you did all the work and then you're not taking the prizes you need off your Charizard.
Yeah,
Uh,
I imagine there's probably some other stage twos that I've seen play that we're forgetting about, but nothing
yeah.
that good.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't a big part of the meta for sure. And then the other thing, which I'm sure you're going to be interested in, is you can use Zoroark to get a stage one EX into play. So, which is obviously something that you couldn't do with the V Max or the V Stars. That whole mechanic didn't work with Zoroark. So now we have a new opportunity for Zoroark to shine, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be I think it's gonna be like super interesting. Debatably overpowered. I think Zorak's one of the cards I've been most excited for ever. It's very reminiscent of stuff like Mewtwo and Mew, and I don't know, Mewtwo and Mew's the only one that I played like that, but
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
it's similar to that. And so I think that's really neat being able to like have these toolbox style decks. And now you have these really good attackers. Right now, the Zorak style decks are just, and I'm gonna make a video on this. I promise. I put up a poll and I was like, what do you want to see? And everyone's like Zorak, and I was like, here's not Zorak, but I got the video coming up. Um,
Hmm.
but Zorak right now just plays like a counter box, which isn't bad. It's still a cool deck. You need to maneuver the matchups in a moderately interesting way, but really you just like pick up the counter, do whatever does the most damage, do whatever is best. It's usually very straightforward.
Hmm.
I think it's much more interesting if we have actually good attackers. And you said you pulled up some on your page, right? Which no one can see, and it's a podcast anyway. But
Correct. So
y-
let me see. I've actually been looking at some of the uh, stage twos also, but let's see here. So the stage one EXs. I'm looking.
yeah, so
Let's see.
I think the best one. I think there are two very strong
Okay.
ones, maybe three, but I think I'm really looking at Bayonet EX, which is a psychic EX. And it does, I believe it does 30 for one psychic on the stage one, and then does item
Yeah.
lock.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple good psychic in the. Well, this is the stage one. Bayonet EX does 30. Well, just does 30 damage.
30 item lock.
30 damage in the item lock. So that's the first attack. So that's
Yeah,
obvious.
what's the second attack? I don't
And
remember that.
then Poltergeist for 2 energy. Look at your opponent's hand. Does 60 damage for each trainer in their hand. So it pairs well together. Obviously, Zoroark can be a controlish style deck, so this I think can pair in very well with that and be kind of fun to play.
Yeah, it gets really interesting. Some people have said it should be in Gardevoir EX, which we'll talk about. Um, but I don't think
Hmm.
that really makes a lot of sense that they don't actually have any synergy together. But your Bayonet EX in a pseudo control style list, it's very similar to Vikavolt, very similar to Seismitoad. It's just
Right.
stage one, and some people are saying that makes it much worse, which it does. But a turn two item lock is still pretty good, especially when you have the option of cards like Cheryl. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, that's about it. But and then there are also ways of trapping your opponent. So one of the other Pokemon EX, like Spidops EX, I think it's a Grass EX stage
Oh,
one.
yep, I see
It
that here.
pairs very nicely with it. It's very similar to Leafeon V Max with its attack doing more for each retreat cost your opponent's active Pokemon, except it's much weaker. But its ability here says it increases your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost by one.
Yep.
And that's obviously very powerful. You can get both of those with Zoroark. So you can have a pseudo control Zoroark style list. You guess your opponent's Pokemon up and item locks them, and then
Hmm.
hopefully you'll KO it. Or you could go try to not KO it, but I say you probably try to KO it. They'll eventually get out. Then you'll just win the game through that. And then you could also attack with Spite Ops if you want. It's not a horrible attacker. And
Hmm.
I'd love to see your Vorva Energy style boxes with this. Keep in mind we are losing Aurora energy,
Yeah, it's going to
but
make it tough, difficult.
yeah, but there's a new energy. I
Okay.
don't
With
is
the
it
next set
Luminous?
or
Not Scarlet and Violet, but the set
okay.
after that. Presumably, or is it confirmed? I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, but it's similar, and
Hmm.
in this style of deck, it should work well enough.
Okay. And with Spite Ops, it can, the ability I assume can stack. So if you get multiple ones in
Yes.
play, if you especially you really want to get your opponent stuck in the active, you can get multiples of those if that's
Yeah.
your.
How much damage does it do?
It
Again, I
does
don't.
90 plus 30 more for retreat cost.
Yeah, and so that's not a ton of damage. Even if you have four
No,
Spite Ops in play, that's not that much. If you had Galar Mine, it might be good enough, but you
that's
don't. So.
rotating. Right. So I think it's more of a control thing than to get something stuck for your opponent rather than using the attack, I suspect.
Yeah, but I think it's very strong. Because well, okay, so I was gonna say it can't be bumped like Galar Mine, which is kind of true, except it's not entirely true because you could turn it off with Path,
Right.
reducing your retreat cost back down again. But I think it's still pretty strong.
No, it's yeah, no, it certainly is strong. So that's a strong option for Zorak. And then you mentioned the Arcanine EX also.
No, but I was gonna go there.
Okay,
You're stealing all my
I'm sorry.
stuff.
It's next to it on the page I'm looking at. So, and obviously we can't call it up in live or PTCGO because it's not there at this point. But in this one is a terrestrial, so I guess this was another one, which again I forgot. Doesn't take damage while it's on the bench, which doesn't get you too excited, right? But then Raging Claw, 30 plus damage, does 10 more for each damage counter on this Pokemon. It's a fire, so you can use Magna Basin. I would guess you'd think about that. And
Yeah, you're spoiling my Zorak video.
well, so you didn't want to talk about this now?
No, it's fine. No, let's do it. Let's do it.
So, and then the other attack does 250 for 3 fire energy. So, and then you discard 2. So, obviously a bunch of damage. Obviously, you have a hard time attacking again, but maybe it's getting knocked out for you on you.
Yeah.
Or
Someone
you're
said,
scooping it up, maybe.
well, for now.
Oh, that's true. That's going away. So, yeah.
But someone said about this card, it's very similar to an interesting card, a very powerful card that actually won the world championship, Reshiram and Charizard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which it kind of is, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a stage 1 and you don't have Welder, so it's significantly worse in that aspect. Right, but you played that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is it going to be good enough? I'm not sure. So that's a question.
Yeah, but I don't think that's something too many people are looking at. As I said, stay tuned for my Zorak video. I'm gonna suppose that's gonna
You'll
be the
crack
main
it with
main
that.
that's probably the main deck I'll talk about in that video. But then and I have some spicy stuff. Actually, it's not that spicy, but
Well, maybe I
and
can make
then
my Entei deck work too, because there is maybe you throw it in, but there's the Armor Rouge, right, that can move energy around. So I'll have to
yeah, I
think
think
about that. But
yeah, I don't know about Armrouge and Entei, but I think Armrouge is powerful with Hisuian Arcanine and some other things as well.
mhm.
But I don't think Hisuian Arcanine's sorry, not Hisuian Arcanine, just
No,
Arcanine EX.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it has solid potential. Water is also very good right now, but it's losing tools, so that's good for fire.
hmm
But then we're also going to see the really powerful one. I think. Well, okay, so there are a few ones that we haven't talked about yet, but
hmm
Gardevoir EX, that's like the big one.
that is the big one. I mean, there is the one that yeah. I mean, big damage is Miraidon EX. Just can do 220 for 3 energy.
Yeah,
So
we'll get to this. We'll get
oh,
to
you're
this.
getting there because to me,
Stop
Gardevoir, I
jumping
thought
in.
that was the showstopper. No, okay,
Yeah, well, it is, but people are going to click off. I mean, they've already
all
clicked
right,
off, but
go ahead.
So Gardevoir accelerates. As I said, wait, can you read it off? I don't have it in front of
Yeah,
me.
so
You
and
have it
this is the one I'm excited about too. So it's got an ability, Psychic Embrace. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your psychic Pokemon. So Mimikyu EX making it shine. I know that's why you're excited about it. Um, and so if you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. And you can't use it to knock yourself out though. That it also gives that in parentheses.
Yeah.
Which
But
obviously for some control players might like that, but you can't do that. And then the attack, it does 190 for 3 energy, 2 of which are psychic, miraculous force, 190 damage, and this Pokemon recovers from all special conditions.
Yeah. So when you're paralyzed, this is the perfect attack to use.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that little ad
Yeah,
is
it's not.
isn't
It's like
great.
it's literally it's so useless because if you're paralyzed or asleep, you can't like use it, and if you're confused, you might not be able to use it. And if you're burned burned, you might not be burned anymore, or you've already taken damage. And same thing with the poison. It's very I guess it's good against it's like spicy something curry. I don't know. There's some card like that that like burns you, but
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it doesn't add much value.
yeah. But then yeah, I'm very excited for Gardevoir. I think it'll be cool. I think I've looked at some lists. It's interesting. It's certainly just a different style of deck. It's nothing crazy, but it obviously relies heavily on the curl. Well, I don't know if I say it relies heavily on, but it gains a lot from the Curlia engine or slash Gardevoir slash Gallade engine,
Hmm.
allowing you to have more access to discard, draw, search. It's just a very strong engine. Debatably the best engine in the game right now. Probably most people wouldn't say that, but I say it's in contention certainly. In post rotation, I think it's probably the best engine.
Yeah, I mean, starting at the beginning, that seems like the best option. And I've been playing some Shadow Rider, and this with Shadow Rider, you can get energies from the discard back and really power up Shadow Rider, which in some ways might be a better attacker than Gardevoir. Use Gardevoir to set up Shadow Riders.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that. That's a lot of deck space. I feel like you just generally want a few basic psychic attackers,
Hmm.
as well as I don't know. People have been playing it with the psychic Zacian V. So when everyone thought Zacian V was bad, was rotating, no, it's back. It's still very strong. So I think that's interesting. Um, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I think it'll be interesting. It's not crazy interesting, but it's cool. Similar to Gardevoir GX as well, I guess. But I'd say it's weak. It's stronger. Um, Gardevoir, what's it? Gardevoir EX. This new one is stronger
Yeah,
than Gardevoir GX, especially being on a much better typing.
yeah. I mean, that's that. Yeah, that is good. It's weak to dark, so that's probably not a bad thing to be. Doing
I don't
one.
know. It's not great, especially with Drapion, but
Yeah, that's true. And Mew's
yeah,
not going to go away, so Drapian's not going away.
yeah. Can you accelerate to any Pokemon, or just psychic Pokemon?
Um, only to Psychic.
Okay, so that's limiting some, but
Yeah,
no Blissey Gardevoir, unfortunately.
I'm sure you would have
You
loved that.
Yeah, no, I could see you do it, and then your Blissey gets KO'd, and then so you got like a ton of energy on your Blissey, and then it gets KO'd, and then you accelerate 10 energy back to the Blissey, and one shot your opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the attack itself was at 190. You really do. I think you want to be powering up some other attacker than your Gardevoir. I would think.
Yeah, there's some other ones. I don't remember what the main one. I think the main one might be Zacian V. I think it's no, it's probably I don't remember what it is. You can do the other Gardevoir, the Gallade though. They're not bad attackers either.
Hmm.
So, but then yeah, the other two, the Transformers, Rhydon and Koraidon, uh, literally they're just like Zacian V again. They like literally completely ran out of ideas, but that's fine. They have some different aspects. Like the fighting one, I believe, has an ability that accelerates energy and ends your. Oh wait, never mind. The lightning one has an
Okay.
ability that searches for Pokemon, which is a bit
Yes.
more unique there. It is actually very strong. People are thinking it's going to be very good or pretty good. Oh, I got kicked out of PTCGO.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah.
But yeah, people think that's going to be pretty solid. I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
And it's kind of cool.
search for two basic lightning Pokemon put them on your bench, and you shuffle, but your turn doesn't end. So, right. So therefore, it has a place if you're going for a lightning deck.
Yeah, I think it's solid. And then
And it
you can also pair it with Regieleki VMAX is probably the logical partner where you just hit even harder. And then you can accelerate with there's a new item card that's inconsistent, but it's very powerful. That's Power Ceiling.
Well, the attack on this for is 220,
Yeah,
which is
220 you can't attack next turn.
right. That's a problem.
Well,
Retreat
it's
cost is
just
one.
Zacian. It's just Zacian, pretty much.
Yeah, but retreat cost of one. So I don't know. Flaffy's not rotating, correct?
Well, no, but it's
So
Flaffy.
I know, but everybody tries. But you accelerate the the basics down, and then you for retreat cost of one. See, Zacian what is Zacian two retreat cost? I think.
It's a little different, but
So one retreat cost helps a lot. You can retreat it much easier if you want to if you can switch between things. It's more viable that regard. So, I
yeah.
but and then there's the fighting one also, right? That you started to mention.
Yeah, which is not as different from Zacian. It has a very similar ability. It still has fighting energy. It's more
Right.
consistent. I don't. Is it to any Pokemon?
Well, in this one,
It like ends your turn. It
it
like from the discard.
they're from the discard, right? And it ends your turn only to your fighting Pokemon,
Okay, but two fighting energy.
right? And then again, the attack does 220 for 3 energy, and it can't attack next turn. But this one does have a retreat cost of 2, so that makes it harder. And we are losing Air Balloon, correct?
Yeah, we're losing that. So
So
I think it's still like it's all right. I don't think it has a lot of great cards that are gonna work with it super well either. So
yeah, I mean to set up something, I guess. I mean, if
yeah,
especially if you're going first and you can accelerate 2 energy and
yeah,
end
but
your
that's a lot to
turn,
do.
that is quite. What's that?
That's awkward to do though.
In what way?
Well, getting two fighting energy in the discard, in addition
Yeah,
to probably one to attach, as well as um, two fighting Pokemon like in play.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, probably the Lightning one, the Miraidon seems a little more viable, I would think, but we'll see.
Yeah, but I'd say I'm probably most looking forward to fight ops. So to stop my opponents from playing, um, possibly with some good old Palkia from Celebrations. And then yeah, I'm just interested in seeing what people are gonna come up with. Though I'm very excited for Zoroark, and I'm just
Hmm.
excited for the EXs. I think they're pretty well designed. I hope the Trastle mechanic will be implemented in an interesting way, though.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the Gardevoir certainly seems intriguing, and the Bayonet doing item lock is it's always fun to do to your opponent. So
Yes.
it's not fun to play against, but therefore it makes it all the more fun to do. And I found with when the V Pokemon first came out, and you still had the GXs, it was a fun time between the two. So I'm looking forward to having the EXs and the Vs, V Maxes, V Stars mixed together. It gives a lot of options for decks, which I think is fun.
Yeah. All we need now is a Pokemon that takes extra prizes, and we're all set.
Yeah, and a client that works, but that's to be determined.
Yep. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
So wait, what's your favorite Pokemon from the new set? What do you favorite EX?
uh, Bayonet, I think,
In that? Yeah. Okay.
just gonna ruin everybody's day for him.
Yep. Okay. I guess we won't be playing against each other too much.
No, I won't be getting many friends to play against me in the game for
Yeah.
sure.
When you're playing item lock, I'm playing control. The video like lasts 10 days.
Yeah, it's the unending game, so no one will enjoy it, not even us. So okay,
Yep. But we hope you've been enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully we'll put it on another podcast platform. Who knows? That's not my job. That's your job. All right.
I will. Yeah, I have done a little looking, but not as much as I need to, and it is not quite as simple as I would have hoped. I got to say.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but we hope you enjoyed, and we're excited to see you next time. I've been 10 types.
And I'm Uncommon Fossil, and take
Like,
care.
comment, yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
go ahead.
yep, yep, yep. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell as always.
Yeah, take care.